All right, let's dive in today.
Okay.
We're going to be looking at this article, Post-Evangelicalism.
Mm-hmm.
It's asking,
Yeah.
well, how did American evangelicalism go from,
Right.
this really powerful force
Yeah.
to kind of losing its grip?
Yeah.
But it also, what I think is really fascinating, is it connects this decline
Yeah.
to the rise of new technologies,
Oh, wow.
like cryptocurrency and brain-computer interfaces.
Interesting. So,
That is a fascinating connection.
yeah,
It is, yeah.
you don't often think about those two things being connected.
Right.
But the author is making a case
Okay, yeah.
that they are, in fact, related.
Interesting.
So to start off,
Yeah.
the author kind of takes us back to the 80s and 90s, which was, kind of like the peak
Right, the heyday.
of American evangelicalism.
Yeah,
That was when they were really involved in like all the cultural and political debates,
Absolutely.
the satanic panic,
Mhm.
the culture wars.
They were creating their own subculture
Yes.
with like Christian music and bookstores and schools.
Definitely.
Yeah. So what do you think? Do you think that insularity contributed to their decline?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I mean, the author seems to think that,
Okay.
creating that separate world might have actually limited their ability to engage with a changing culture.
Right. So they weren't really speaking to anyone new.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just kind of preaching to the choir.
Preaching to the choir. Yep.
And meanwhile,
Yeah.
technology is just like advancing at this incredible pace.
Right.
And the article brings up two specific examples that I think are really relevant.
Okay.
Libra and Neuralink.
Oh, okay.
So for anyone who might not be totally familiar,
Sure.
could you give us like a quick rundown
Yeah, of course.
of what those are and why they're causing such a stir?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Libra, this is Facebook's attempt
Okay.
at creating a global cryptocurrency.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine a world where a single corporation controls the main way that people exchange money.
Right.
That raises all sorts of questions about who gets access.
Right.
Who's in control, and even who gets excluded.
Yeah, it sounds kind of like a sci-fi novel or something.
Yeah, a little bit, right?
Like a dystopia almost.
Exactly, yeah.
And then there's Neuralink.
Right, so Neuralink,
That's
that's Elon Musk's company.
okay.
And they're developing brain-computer interfaces.
Mm-hmm.
So basically chips that get implanted in your brain.
Wow.
I know.
So what could that even be used for? Besides just being scary.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, they talk about treating neurological disorders and enhancing human ability, so it has the potential to be really beneficial.
Right.
But it also opens this whole can of worms about, privacy and what it even means to be human.
Right. So the article seems to suggest that these technologies, like Libra and Neuralink, they could give corporations like this unprecedented power and control over our lives.
Yeah.
And it almost sounds like something out of
Mm-hmm.
the biblical prophecies about the end times
Right.
that evangelicals have been warning about forever.
Right. Yeah.
What do you make of that?
Well, I think the author definitely sees that connection.
Okay.
He's arguing that evangelicals who used to be so vocal about all these perceived threats, they've become weirdly silent on these new challenges.
Wow. It's almost like he's calling for a return of that Christian warrior mentality.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
You're like urging them to band together against these new technological Goliaths.
Yeah.
But how effective do you think that approach would even be?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, especially given that, their past attempts to control the narrative sometimes really backfired.
That's true.
Like, how do you see that playing out?
Yeah, that's the real question.
Yeah.
Can they address
these
legitimate concerns about technology without resorting to the same tactics that kind of led to their downfall in the first place?
Yeah.
It's a tough one. Yeah. He even goes so far as to suggest forming alliances with groups they've traditionally opposed, like Roman Catholics, to present this united front.
That's interesting.
It is.
It's like he sees the need for this really drastic shift in strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe he's realizing that the old playbook of us versus them isn't going to work.
Exactly. Yeah.
In this new landscape.
I think that's a good point.
Okay, so before we get into what that new approach might look like.
Sure.
Let's unpack some of the reasons why the author says American evangelicalism declined in the first place.
Okay, so the reasons for the decline.
Yeah, like he points to a number of like self-inflicted wounds.
Self-inflicted wounds. Okay.
Yeah.
So like, what are some of those?
Well, he specifically calls out their tendency toward paranoia.
Oh, okay.
And this really aggressive approach that alienated potential allies.
So it's not just that they were insular, they were also kind of combative.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And a good example of this is the Satanic Panic of the 1980s.
Oh, yeah, the Satanic Panic.
Which is just fascinating.
That's a wild story.
I mean, kind of dark.
Yeah, definitely.
But also...
But fascinating.
Yeah, really interesting. Like a whole period of widespread fear and moral panic.
Absolutely.
Fueled by these rumors of satanic cults infiltrating everything.
Right.
From daycares to heavy metal music.
It's everywhere, yeah.
It was everywhere.
Yeah.
So the article argues that while the Satanic Panic eventually fizzled out, it really left its mark.
On the evangelical movement.
It did, yeah. How so? I think it contributed to this culture of fear and suspicion.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
Which led to this more insular and defensive posture.
So they were kind of like circling the wagons?
Exactly, yeah. And that ultimately limited their ability to connect with people outside their own circles.
Got it.
So it's interesting to think about how that same fear might be playing out today.
Okay.
You know, maybe amplified even more now with how fast technology changes.
You're saying like a similar kind of moral panic.
Yeah, possibly.
But this time it's about technology.
Instead of Satanism.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like think about AI.
Right.
All the anxiety around AI, people worried that it's going to get too powerful.
That it's going to, like take over or something.
Yeah, like surpass human control.
Oh, wow.
Maybe even turn against us.
That is scary.
It is a little bit, yeah.
It does feel like some of those same themes from the Satanic Panic are coming back.
Right.
But like with a tech twist this time.
Exactly.
So how do we even begin to move past that fear to have a more, I don't know, reasonable conversation about all this?
Right.
Because obviously there are real ethical issues to think about.
Well, and that's where I think the article's call for a new kind of Christian engagement is so important.
Okay.
You know, it's not about just rejecting all technology.
Right.
Or trying to go back to some, like...
Simpler time,
exactly.
Yeah.
It's about being thoughtful, critical, willing to see both the good and the bad.
The good and the bad, yeah. So what would that look like in practice?
Well, I think it has to happen on different levels. Like individuals need to be educating themselves, thinking critically about how they use technology in their own lives.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But then faith communities also need to step up by creating space for these conversations.
Okay.
Like really digging into the tough questions. Like, what are our values when it comes to tech? How do those values inform our choices?
Okay.
And then how can we make sure technology is used in a way that's actually good?
That aligns with those values.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's something I think we often forget.
What's that?
It's not just about reacting to what these companies are doing.
Okay.
It's about us being proactive, you know?
So shaping how technology develops.
Right. Shaping it from the start.
How we use it.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's where I think this idea of forming alliances with other groups comes in.
Okay, you're talking about like the author's suggestion to work with Roman Catholics and others?
Right, because these problems are too big for any one group to solve on their own.
It's going to take, like collaboration?
Definitely.
And being open-minded.
Absolutely.
Even to people you might disagree with on other things.
Yeah, finding that common ground.
It's interesting that the author specifically mentions Roman Catholics.
Right.
Like, that's a group that evangelicals have historically had a pretty complicated relationship with.
Yeah, to say the least.
Yeah.
But I think it shows he recognizes that things need to change.
Okay.
You know, that old divisions maybe aren't so important anymore.
Right.
Compared to these bigger issues.
So a broader coalition?
Yeah, exactly.
That's a pretty big shift for a movement that's always defined itself as being separate.
In opposition to everyone else.
Do you think it's even possible?
That kind of alliance. It's hard to say, but I think the fact that he's even suggesting it shows that he knows the old ways aren't working.
Like they have to adapt or they'll become irrelevant.
Exactly.
Right. Wow.
And that adaptation, it's not just about like changing tactics. It's about a whole new way of thinking.
A whole new mindset.
Yeah.
So moving away from that fear.
Right. Less fear.
Toward a more
engaged, collaborative way of approaching technology.
Okay. So what does that actually look like?
Well, I think education is a good place to start.
Yeah.
Faith leaders, educators, they need to really get a grasp on this stuff.
On the technology?
Yeah, on the technology. And I don't just mean the technical side of it, but the social and ethical and spiritual parts too.
So they can actually talk about this stuff with their congregations.
Exactly.
With their students.
With everybody.
With the whole community.
Yeah.
And it can't just be like, technology is bad.
Right.
It has to be deeper than that.
More nuanced.
Yeah, more nuanced.
Okay.
Recognizing that technology is a tool.
Okay.
And like any tool, it can be used for good or bad.
Right.
And it's up to us to decide how we want to use it.
Right. So it's not about demonizing it.
Exactly.
It's about taking responsibility.
Yeah.
That requires being informed.
Being engaged and being willing to have these tough conversations.
Right. Even when they're uncomfortable.
Even when they're uncomfortable.
Yeah, because the future of technology, it's not something that's just happening to us.
Right.
It's something we're creating.
We are creating it.
Yeah.
Through our choices.
Yeah.
Our conversations.
Oh, absolutely.
The actions that we take.
That's it.
So the article, it doesn't really give us any easy answers or like a step-by-step guide.
All right.
But it does leave us with some
questions.
Pretty thought-provoking questions.
Big questions, yeah. It makes you think about your own relationship with technology, how you're playing a role in shaping it, and what your responsibility is.
To make sure it's used for good.
Yeah, to make sure it benefits humanity.
Right.
And I think that call to action that he puts out there.
That call to really engage with technology.
Yeah, engage with it in a new way.
It's for all of us.
It is.
Not just evangelicals.
Everyone.
It's about stepping up, speaking out, working together to create a future where technology serves us.
Yeah, not the other way around.
You know, it's wild how this article connects these totally different things.
Yeah.
Like the decline of American evangelicalism and the rise of,
all this crazy new tech.
Yeah, all this powerful technology. What do you think the author's trying to get at?
I think he's pointing to this like really crucial moment, like a turning point, where those old ways of thinking, they just don't cut it anymore. And he's saying, hey, you got to find a new way forward.
And not just evangelicals, right?
Anyone who cares about where society's going.
So not repeating those same mistakes, not running away from the world, not
demonizing technology.
Yeah, exactly.
It's about engaging with it, understanding it, and figuring out how to shape it to fit our values.
It's a bigger conversation than just one religious group.
Oh, absolutely.
It's about like what kind of future we all want.
Exactly.
So he seems to be saying that faith communities, they have something important to offer here with all their focus on ethics and morals and stuff.
Yeah, like they've been thinking about this stuff for centuries.
But how do they even get heard?
Yeah, how do they cut through the noise?
With these huge tech companies and everything changing so fast.
It's a tough one.
I mean, the article doesn't really lay out a clear plan.
No, it doesn't.
But it does offer some ideas.
Okay, like what?
Well, like he talks about the need for more people in these communities to actually understand technology.
Right, technological literacy. It can't just be, oh, technology is bad,
Right.
You got to understand it to actually have a say in it.
So not just condemning it or being afraid of it.
Yeah, it's deeper than that.
Okay.
It's about learning how it works, what it can do, the good and the bad, and how it's already changing us.
And we need to be talking about this stuff. Yeah. Not just within our own groups.
Right, out in the world.
In the public square.
Yeah.
With, the people who are making decisions.
With the policymakers, with the tech people.
Building bridges.
Yes.
Finding common ground.
Even when it's hard.
Even with people we don't agree with.
Yeah, I think that's a key point.
It's like he's calling for this whole new way of seeing things.
Right.
Not us versus them.
It's more like...
We're all in this together.
Yeah, we're all in the same boat.
And the choices we make now
Yeah.
about technology.
They're going to have a huge impact.
For a long time.
Yeah, for generations to come.
This whole deep dive has been really eye-opening.
It has, yeah.
What do you think is like the big takeaway here?
I think it's this. We're not just helpless when it comes to technology.
Okay.
We have power,
Yeah.
We can speak up. And we have to use our voice.
To shape the future.
Yeah, to build the world we want to see.
And that future, it's not set in stone.
No.
It's something we're making right now.
We're building it.
With every choice we make.
Every conversation.
Every action we take.
That's it.
So, like the article asks, in this crazy time of tech changing everything, what role are you going to play?
It's a good question.
Yeah, one we should all be thinking about.
Absolutely.
Because the answers, they're going to determine what kind of world we leave behind.
For everyone who comes after us.
Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We hope it's given you some things to think about.
Definitely.
And maybe inspired you to keep exploring these ideas.
Keep the conversation going.
Yeah, because this is just the beginning.
It is just the beginning.